The title of this video is What is Truth? Have you ever noticed how strongly people hold on to their opinions, especially regarding what they perceive as truth? This is not a new phenomenon, but in today's fast-paced, interconnected world, it feels more intense and emotionally charged than ever before, certainly in my memory. From political debates to personal conversations, you see a whole array of perspectives passionately defended as true. And yet this leads to the critical question, what is the truth? And this question has echoed throughout history. Consider the account of Pontius Pilate at the trial of Jesus. This is in John 18:37 and 38. For this cause I came into this world, that I should bear witness to the truth. Everyone that is of the truth hears my voice. And then Pilate said to him, what is truth? Now, Pilate's question was not dismissive. It was actually quite profound, highlighting the complexity of truth and human experience. He was an intelligent ruler who was aware of the relativeness of what people call truth. And here we are 2 millennia later, and we're still asking the same question. Is there such a thing as absolute truth? Or is it merely a reflection of personal belief and perspective? Everyone believes their opinions are what is true. And yet that's not possible since there are so many divergent points of view. So you have to ask yourself, can we know what is true? Now, when you're listening to someone or engaged in a conversation, you naturally assume that you're exploring a person's ideas and thoughts. But what you're actually doing is you're interacting with a sequence of opinions. You then have to ask, where did everyone get those opinions? Virtually everything you read or hear is actually a collection of opinions. And many people are so heavily invested in their opinions, they'll argue with you if you disagree. In some extreme cases, people will even accept martyrdom rather than relinquish their opinions. Now, take a moment to reflect. How often have you been certain of something only to later realize your perspective was limited or maybe even completely wrong? For example, imagine two people observing the same event from different vantage points, let's say skydiving. And while one sees an act of courage, bravery, and adventure, the other perceives risk, recklessness, and danger. And both interpretations are true to the individuals. And yet their truths are shaped by their perspectives. And so this also comes up when insurance companies interview witnesses of an accident. One says the red car was traveling too fast, and the other says the green car was. And so in this case, only one person is right, but when questioned, actual truth comes into question, and the perception of speed is interpreted. So this is why when engaging in conversations, you often are navigating a sea of opinions rather than discovering universal truths. But you've got to ask, where do these opinions come from? And the fact is, you can't function without opinions, so you have to have opinions. They're what provide context and purpose behind your choices and all your decisions. So having opinions is not the problem. Being stubbornly fixated on them is a problem. Because your opinions are deeply tied to your beliefs, and those beliefs are like filters and they color your worldview. So it's like wearing tinted glasses. Your beliefs influence how you perceive and interpret everything around you. Whatever your current beliefs are, you're pretty sure they are what is true. However, if that were true, then the truth would be absolute and unchangeable. And we all know that isn't the truth. We're all constantly modifying our beliefs as we explore new perspectives and acquire more information. For example, did you know there are well over 30,000 Christian denominations worldwide? Each group holds variations of beliefs, and yet each is convinced they possess the correct truth. This diversity underscores the relativity of truth, shaped by what one chooses to believe. So, since there are differences, you have to conclude what is true depends on what you have convinced yourself is true. So, by now you realize that beliefs are not static. As you encounter new experiences and informations, your beliefs evolve. And this flexibility is essential for growth. But why then do so many people resist challenging their own beliefs when they know this is true? Some will say, well, I research information and I come to an educated conclusion. But since each person comes to different conclusions, you have to say that lots of beliefs are not truth, regardless of how much research a person claims to do. The fact that many scientific studies are sponsored by companies that have an agenda to promote a particular conclusion means that you have to be exceptionally circumspect of your research. One important teaching a spiritual mentor told me over 50 years ago, I've never forgotten it, is that while everyone has opinions, and opinions are certainly necessary to function, be on guard to not be fixated, or stuck on any opinion. The human proclivity to hold on to cherished beliefs is rooted in an ego's need to be right. And when you can let go of this need to be right, you open yourself to a lot of new possibilities. But if you cling to the need to be right, you're going to lock yourself in right where you are. A characteristic of a person of higher consciousness is flexibility and open-mindedness. Unfortunately, I have witnessed quite a few very intelligent people who proclaim to be open-minded and of high consciousness revert to previously held opinions even when more objective information is provided to them. Their need to be right overrides logic and their willingness to be open to other possibilities. I remember several years ago hearing a politician refer to alternate facts. He was asked a question on a controversial topic, and my scientific mind immediately jumped in and laughed at the suggestion that there can be alternate facts. After all, isn't a fact a fact? That means it's truthful. And yet, on certain subjects, the truth seems to depend on what is included in forming the fact, and maybe also on the consciousness level of the person stating the position. If only selected information is included in the research and the formation of a conclusion, you could be led to be what is stated as truth, but it's only true when including the selected information. When you add other information, you come to other conclusions. And this sometimes happens in courts of law. Certain information is not allowed to be presented. But maybe if that information were presented, the jury would come to a completely different conclusion. So this fact creates confusion with some who ask spiritual teachers if something is true or not. One day the teacher might say, well, yes, of course that is true. And on another day, the teacher might say, of course not. It's an illusion. It's like being in the matrix. So on one level, many things seem to be absolute. But from a higher perspective, there are often more subjective interpretations. Your task is to determine on what you choose to base your opinions and therefore your decisions. Since opinions are rooted in beliefs, and beliefs are the causative factors of determining your experiences, it is incumbent that you explore the highest level of truth on which you base your opinions and decisions. And I say this because I see many people today dogmatically asserting their opinions, and they've derived it from limited sources. And then they project what they want their listeners to believe. You hear this all the time from commentators on radio, TV, and podcasts. It's a regular daily thing. And there are those in power places who want you to believe certain things in order for them to have you buy or support what they're offering. So they are selective in what information they provide and what words they craft to describe their agenda. Often the differences in meaning of words that they choose are so subtle you don't even notice your opinion is being molded a certain prejudicial way. Now, one way of looking at what you read or hear is to regard it as all propaganda promoted by the person wanting to convince you of their point of view. And nearly everybody does this. And it leads to a form of brainwashing in which you convince yourself something is true based on a presentation that you heard or witnessed. The way to circumvent being brainwashed by these experts, and I put that word in quotes, is to be willing to look at various sides of every topic that affects you in order to form a useful conclusion. A useful conclusion is one that supports what you want in your life. So you ask yourself, does what I believe lead me closer to the life I want or not? Does accepting what the ad or the person is saying lead me to a life that supports my evolution and happiness, or does it restrict me? These are really important questions because it will help you to understand what the speaker is trying to persuade you to do. Now, one effective method of remaining objective that I've used a lot is to ask yourself, what if I'm being told is the opposite of what is actually true? This self inquiry will help open your mind to additional possibilities. I have a friend of mine who was being visited by a very high ranking military leader a few years ago. And he told my friend, he said, you're pretty well informed about what's going on behind the scenes in this world state because I gave you a whole lot of insights. But then he said, but you don't even know 1% of what I know that's going on. So you may have the illusion of being well informed because you read and listen to a lot of sources, but no matter what you think, you actually know very little of what is happening in secret. And when you realize this, you'll conclude that no matter what you read or hear, you'll have to say, maybe. Time will tell. Now, I'll tell you a trick that's being used on you to convince you something is true. This is a trick I often see politicians and religious leaders using, and they may sincerely believe what they're telling you. I'm not saying that they're not sincere. They may be. This is the point. They themselves may be a victim of deception. Here's what they do. They'll present something to you that seems logical. It makes sense. Or it's even perhaps something you already believe to be true. So this causes you to nod your head. Oh, okay. I get that. And then after they get you nodding your head for a while, they subtly start injecting other ideas, which may not make complete sense to you, But since you already agreed with their previous premise, you'll tend to allow yourself to accept their follow-up arguments. And then, if you're exposed to this repeatedly, you'll find yourself going along with a whole list of beliefs that you would never have accepted previously. So without you even realizing it, your beliefs have been chained. And this is one of the main ways your subconscious mind becomes programmed with beliefs. You literally brainwash yourself through repetition. When you hear and think something over and over, you eventually come to believe it is true, and it sinks in at a subconscious level. So you become committed to your belief. And this is what has led martyrs to be burned at the stake or to otherwise be killed for their beliefs, in some cases that were completely untrue. Once this is inculcated into your subconscious, because everybody has a need to be right, you'll defend this belief as if you're absolutely sure that you're right. Now, this is also the basis for the success of positive affirmations. They can counter the programming in your subconscious, which was previously embedded through repetition. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to believe, or I'm not going to try to even mold your opinion. I'm cautioning you to be truly open minded and flexible, as there are a lot of forces at work that want to conform you to their subjective opinions while trying to convince you their opinion is absolute fact. And if they can get you to believe what they want you to believe, they then have a level of control over you, and they can get you to do things that you normally wouldn't. A majority of people fell into this trap during the pandemic in and around 2020. And with the internet today, you have access to many sources of input. And if you don't take advantage of exploring several points of view, before you know it, you'll find yourself accepting a prejudiced point of view. Studies have shown people tend to only read and listen to people who already share their point of view. That's called confirmation bias. And changing your beliefs can feel like a psychological earthquake, shaking the whole foundation upon which you build your identity and your decisions. And that's particularly challenging when beliefs are tied to deeply personal subjects like religion, morals, ethics, or purpose. So people retreat into seeming comfort and safety with what beliefs they're familiar with. But spiritual growth requires courage. It requires an open mind. It requires a willingness to change your beliefs. It requires courage to question, explore alternative possibilities, and let go of what no longer aligns with your evolving understanding. In today's world, information abounds, but so does misinformation. The use of the term alternate fact reflects a reality where different narratives shape competing versions of truth. How do you discern truth in this kind of a landscape? Well, consider the source. Who benefits from presenting this information? Would there be vested interests or hidden agendas? Ask the opposite. What if the opposite of what I'm being told is true? That question opens your mind to alternative viewpoints. And the second thing is to test the impact. Does this belief align with the life that you want to create? Does it uplift you or does it constrain you? By staying open minded and willing to explore multiple perspectives, you actually protect yourself from becoming overly fixated on a single narrative. And the hallmark or a hallmark of higher consciousness is flexibility. That's an ability to remain open to new ideas while discerning their alignment with your values and purposes. Rigidity in thoughts often stem from fears or insecurity, while openness reflects strength and confidence. Ultimately, determining your truth requires curiosity, and it requires a willingness to challenge your current belief. So here are some guiding principles. First, practice self-inquiry. Regularly attune to yourself. Find out what you think and what you believe. Ask yourself, what do I believe about what I'm hearing and reading? And why do I believe that? Second, seek diverse perspectives. Read, listen, engage with people who hold different views, maybe even opposite views. Don't be afraid of it. The term confirmation bias has emerged due to many people having a tendency to search for, interpret, favor, and recall information in a way that conforms to and supports their prior beliefs or values. And this comes from a human ego need that goes back to the need to be right. So people naturally seek out others who agree with them, and they'll vigorously argue with anyone who disagrees. This is one reason why people love to join groups, all different kinds of groups that where everybody has the same beliefs. So if you're part of a group or maybe a religion and there's hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands or even millions of people that have a similar or very similar belief in some, it makes you feel, well, this is probably true because look at all the people who believe in it. But this can be a trap. Don't let yourself fall into this trap. Now, third, assess your alignment. Does this belief enhance your well-being and support your goals and your evolution? So when you do these three things, you're going to equip yourself with the tools to navigate an ever-changing world while you stay true to your highest self.